Hey toy fans, Aaron here. Today taking a look at Amedda from the Star Wars Power of the Jedi line released in the year 2000. This was the combination of the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, giving you Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in the upper left corner of the card. There is that Star Wars Power of the Jedi logo. On the left side of the packaging, you're going to see the Jedi Force file that you received with the figures in this line. And on the right side through the blister, of course, you do see your included figure. And here's a look at the back of the card, where on the left half, you're going to get a listing of 12 figures, some that were available at that time, others that were being listed as being available later in the year. Upper right corner is going to be your write-up about what I mentioned, that the two trilogies of characters were being brought together by Hasbro for action figures within this line. And then further down, you're going to get a look at the back side of that Jedi Force file, which gives you the character's bio information. And now taking a look at the figure out of the packaging. Overall, it's not the worst figure in the world, but there's a lot of room for improvement on this release. There's certainly a pretty good base to build on for this character. And also, as you see when I go through the articulation, he's still pretty limited. Not that there was a ton of articulation back in 2000, but for the Power of the Jedi line, we were starting to get some elbow swivels and stuff in there. And this figure just does not have that. Being so early in the line, maybe he was meant for the Episode 1 line. Looking in at that head sculpt, far too bright here. A lot of bright off-white colors, and even the blue is, well, it's a little bright also. Certainly his face was not all blue. There was some variance of color in there with the white and the blue, but I would have liked to seen these colors much more darker. The sculpting of the face certainly resembles the character on screen. He did have a pretty kind of stern look, and I don't think that's coming across due to the paint job. Feel like maybe it's there in the sculpt. You can make out some of those lines around the mouth that makes him look like he isn't so cheery, but the bright colors on the face are just kind of making him look a little cheerful, I feel like. Two horns coming out of the top of the head and down at the bottom of his side tail things. Nice painting to those. I do like the way the color fades from purple to a little bit of yellow into that off-white coloring. Back of his head, similar detailing going on. A lot of ridges sculpted in for whatever it is that you would call the back of his head. Painting is so-so. I don't recall that those were really blue stripes so much as kind of waves of color, much like we had on the front of his head. But it was just a quick shot that I saw, so I'm not 100% certain. The rest of the face painting, not too bad. Decent placement for the pupils and the eyes. Nice blue color for that. Lip painting is pretty well placed also for the mouth. So if you can get past those light colors for the rest of the blue, like I said, not the worst thing in the world. Moving further down the figure, looking at the costume, I do think things are pretty representative of what we saw on screen. You've got multiple layers being sculpted and painted onto the figure. This outer robe that has a lot of little pokey points on it. And you have a nice amount of detailing being done in between all those little jagged edges that are sticking out. It has nice layering over the top of the shoulder where it sets on top of this burgundy color inner robe, which also has a lot of detailing going on within the sculpt. And then on the sleeves within his arms, you're going to see a dark brown undershirt coming through going down to his wrists. Very nice subtle fold sculpted in within that. Gives it some dimension. Paint job overall, well, that's really just going to stick in the shoulders where the outer robe is sculpted on. And for the most part, that dark brown is staying right where it needs to be. As for the outer robe covering the chest of his body and his legs, that is separately sculpted. I'm guessing if you're so inclined, you could probably pull the arms apart and peel that off. But then it would just look goofy with it still being on his shoulders. On the center part of his chest, you're going to see more of that inner robe coming through. Similar detailing being sculpted on there for all those little wavy lines. And then that carries down to his lower robes that are attached from the waist down. That is a separately sculpted piece from the legs. There's a slit that runs pretty much all the way up the sides of the legs. For the most part, coloring on the lower half of that skirt piece matches up pretty well to the top half of that inner robe. Here too, you've got some nice folds sculpted in, giving that lower robe some dimension of having a little bit of drape to it. And then for the legs, well, you can't really see much, but it is just sculpted pant legs and boots underneath. But you're pretty much just seeing his little toe sticking out of the bottom of his robes. As for articulation, as expected, things are pretty limited. Just getting a bit of side-to-side movement, but I still think a nice range for that. Full swivel at both shoulders. Full rotation at the waist. And for the legs, even with that skirt piece extending down, you do still get a little bit of forward and back movement. And he doesn't come with any real accessories, but you do get the Jedi Force file, so we'll take a look at that. His photo as you saw it on the front of the packaging. And then on the inside, you're going to get his various statistics, his skills, the gear that he uses, the tech that he uses, a little application for the Jedi Quest Kids Club. And then on the opposite side, his allies and enemies, the adventures that he went on, and there again, the bio write-up that you saw on the back of the card. So overall for me, like I said at the beginning, not the worst figure in the world, but certainly one that could use an update. We did get another version of him released, but that was for his costume in Revenge of the Sith, I believe. So I'd really like to see an update done to the Episode 1 version, giving him a darker skin tone. Certainly with the photoreal face painting they have now, I think a lot could be done to enhance what we originally received. A little bit more articulation would always be nice, and the lack of accessories. While I don't believe he used anything in the movie, I don't think he had a staff, we never saw him with a weapon. One of those little Senate cam droids kind of would have been a nice inclusion. But I'm not going to totally poo-poo this release, because it's always nice to get your background characters or your various alien characters released as an action figure, because it just enhances the main characters that you have on your shelf. So that's going to wrap this one up. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this figure in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.